Hi, I'm Angie Hilton and welcome to Unbreakable Entrepreneurs. As business owners, major challenges are inevitable. So how do we steel ourselves to weather the storms? Here, you'll find real-life stories of resilience, as well as tips from thought leaders and mental health experts on how to become unbreakable entrepreneurs. Marketing and design guru Bryan has worked in all facets of media over the past 28 years, including print, radio, television, video and digital. You may recognise his dulcet tones as the voice of many voiceovers around the world. Chris and his wife Shannon run Moo Media, and when it comes to resilience in business, I think Chris has worked out the simple formula. Do what you love, work with people you love, and keep following what excites you. Good morning, Chris. You've just done the school run and you're ready to work this morning?
Yeah, all set to go for another work day, Angie. Yes.
Good-o.
Good to see you.
You too. We were just mentioning it's been a while, hasn't it? We worked together. How many years ago would it be? About
It's got to be 20 years ago.
20. And I was overdubbing voices on a Mormons commercial that you were producing.
That's it. No, that's it. And I was doing voices too, and it was kind of a weird, it's a weird experience doing that, especially when they're foreign ads and you're voicing for someone else who's got an accent. So I think I was barbecuing in the ad. I was an African American barbecuing and talking to the family about life in general, and it was kind of a strange thing to be a lot younger and no kids at that point.
Did you get to see them back and see your Australian voice over this African American man?
I think I did. I think they were usually on about 3 o'clock in the morning, so there might have been one night home late from the pub where I might have seen it and gone, oh, that was me. And of course, no one believed it.
Hilarious. Now, so you've done the school drop off. How many children do you have?
Two.
How old are they?
Holly. Ash is going into year 12 next year, and Holly's year 10 next year. So 17 and 15.
Ash and Holly, and they're girls, two girls.
No, Ashton's a boy. Ashton's my son. So he's at Joey's and Holly's at Sacred Heart. Yeah.
My daughter's at Sacred Heart too. Did you go to Joey's?
No, I grew up in Ballarat. So I went to a similar school in Ballarat, a school called St. Paul's Tech, which no longer exists. But no, it's similar to Joey's, run by Christian Brothers, and it was an all-boys school. So so I had a similar experience.
So what brought you down to G-Town?
I think it was really the desire to get into radio was what brought me to Geelong. I mean, my family had always had, my grandparents were down here. They had a holiday house or a permanent house down in Ocean Grove. So, like most of Ballarat, we used to spend our summers down here at the beach. And I was working at a newspaper in Ballarat back in the day and doing graphic design. And I always wanted to get into radio. And I knew I had to go to radio school to do that, which was Melbourne. And it was like 2 or 3 nights a week. And I just felt the commute from Ballarat was probably too hard. So my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, we decided that let's get out of Ballarat and make a sea change down to Ocean Grove, a long time before Sea Change came out too. But we did that and then went to radio school and did all of that and got into radio. So it was kind of really for work opportunities that we came here, and I would never be anywhere else.
Yeah, I know. Being near that water, there's just something about it. Even if you don't get down there enough, it's just feeling it and smelling it.
It's just, there's a great vibe.
So you did radio school, and did you study, was it marketing as well?
No, I never studied marketing. So no, I studied. I actually did graphic design, but I did it back in the olden days when they used to do apprenticeship. So I was what they call a compositor. So I did 4 years at the Ballarat Courier at the newspaper in what they call composition. So it was a trade, and but I studied at effectively RMIT. Studied art and design at RMIT over that 4-year period. So I came out as a qualified compositor. And at the time, that was back in the early 90s, and there was a pretty full-on recession back then, and so to have a job where you had security, 4 years, knowing that you were going to be working, I left art school to take that job, and a lot of my mates who were in art school studying graphic design, they took, I'd been working 6 or 7 years before they got their first job, so I think it was the right decision to do that, and all the guys that I worked with, like we were all apprentices together. A lot of those guys have gone on to start their own companies and have got really big companies in the design space these days. So everyone's kind of kicked on, which is good. And unfortunately, that trade doesn't exist anymore. But I found it a really good way to get into the workforce.
Get a foot in the door. And so, what about the radio career? Did that take off at the same time, or what happened there?
No, look, I moved here and worked because I was doing graphic design. I was doing graphic design until I found my first job, and I found it, obviously a pretty hard industry to get into. So it took probably 12 months to get a job, but I landed my first job in Warrnambool at 3YB in Warrnambool, and worked there. Started at night, on the night, doing the night show, and all the request shows, the kids ringing up wanting their songs played. And it was back when a lot of the music was played off CD or carts or mini discs and things like that. So it was pretty intense. There wasn't computers playing all the music like there is now. But I was lucky to see that transition, and so I had a couple of years down there, and then I ended up in Melbourne because I just I was still connected to Ocean Grove, to Geelong. My wife was working here, so I was kind of commuting back and forth from Warrnambool for a couple of years. Not every day, obviously, just once a week, come back, and I ended up getting something in Melbourne. I'm producing down there at on 3AW down there, panel operating and producing over weekends and stuff like that. So that was good to be back. But I was doing breakfast down there, producing, and it was like 3 o'clock. Get up and go to work. So it was a bit. I wasn't a morning person. It was pretty rough.
That has a time limit for sure. How long did you do it?
Yeah, I reckon I did it for. I really can't remember. It was a while, like so long ago, but I think it might have been not quite 12 months, maybe 9 months. I did that, and then I just thought, I'll do something else. I was doing lots of voiceover work at that time, so I thought I reckon I could have a crack at making a business out of just doing voice work. So I chucked the radio job in, and I loved it. Like, the radio was probably, if I think back, it was probably the best job that I ever had, but the hours and the pay, that wasn't great. So I thought, no, time to move on. So anyway, I went and borrowed $5,000 from the Bendigo Bank and set up a studio and just started doing voice work, and that was really where it sort of started.
And so was that the start of Moo Media, or was that a few years later?
No, it was pretty much the start of Moo. So I was doing a bit of freelance graphic design work on and off, because that was what I had done, and it was a good. I've come from there's quite a few members in the family that are in radio, and when I was a young kid talking to them, they always said, you can draw, you can do all this sort of stuff. Make sure you get a job, get a career first, and then go into radio, because you're going to probably have to fall back on that at some point. And they were absolutely right. So it was a bit of graphic design stuff, a bit of freelance stuff, and then voiceover work. So and it was kind of really around the infancy of not the internet, but the being able to do voices from anywhere, from home studios, and being able to work for companies potentially all over the world. I was working for companies all over the world just doing voices. Wow. I did a fair bit of stuff in the States where I played, because it was around the time that what was his name? Steve Irwin was really big in America. And so you'd get banks in America, just, some bank in Arizona that would want someone to play a Steve Irwin type character, but they didn't have a budget for Steve Irwin. So it was like, we just want an Aussie actor.
Can you do a Steve Irwin voice?
No, I can't do it anymore.
Gosh, you
I can't do it anymore. No. So but yeah, so we used to do stuff like that. So, but it was cool. It was just an interesting time, and just working from my my home studio, which was in a the back bedroom of the house in Barwon Heads. I was doing work for Disney and different people like that. So it was kind of
Wow.
crazy, like Disney, cruise lines and stuff like that. So it was pretty cool. But
How do they even get
yeah,
to find, like, well, how do you promote yourself in a space like that? That's quite unique.
there used to be a few websites. There was one, the one I was on was called, I don't even know if it still exists, but it was called worldvoices.com.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
yeah, so you could go there and you could just choose a voice that you wanted, whether it was a male or a female or what accent that you
Mhm.
wanted. And that was how it used to happen. And I
Yeah.
used to just get messages through the email saying, hey, this studio wants to record with you. And back then it was before, ISDN lines and all that
Mhm.
sort of stuff. Or for me, they
Mm.
weren't affordable for someone working from home. So we
Mm.
used to just they would ring up and I'd have to get up at 4 a.m, for their studio time in Arizona. And then they would
Mm.
ring me on the phone and they'd be give me direction over the phone. And then I'd be recording it on my computer.
Mhm.
And then I'd just send them back the file. And that was kind of how
Wow.
it worked.
So
Yeah, it
four
was
in the
pretty cool.
morning, what was your vocal warm up to make yourself sound like you hadn't
Yeah.
just woken up?
No,
You do a few
I
of
don't
those
know. I
funny
think,
sounds like that.
yeah, used to, do all that, all those weird noises. But no, it was just what, I don't know. It was exciting.
Yeah.
It was something different. And you'd go out to a party or whatever and someone would be saying, what do you do? And I'd say, I just do stuff like that. And they thought it was pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, so unique. So
Yeah.
how did it grow from just voiceovers into what you're doing now? And can you explain what it is you're doing right now?
Okay, so really, I guess the transition was I was doing that, and then I kept getting requested to do graphic design. Oh, can you do this? Can you design this? Can you design me a website? And I'd never done a website before, just stuff like that. So I'm a really, I guess, a curious person. Like I always want to know how to do stuff, and
Mhm.
I love YouTube, and I love finding out how to do stuff and teaching myself how to do stuff. So I guess I think just one day I started dabbling. I was doing some freelance work at a newspaper in Geelong, the Geelong Independent. I was working nights there, just 3 nights a week, just as in graphic design. And there were a few guys that worked there that were really savvy with tech stuff. Like they knew what they were doing, and they were like really way, way, way more advanced than a lot of people I'd ever met in the sense that they just knew. And one of them, I don't know if you know, one of them was a guy called Richard Beachy who
Oh
had a
yeah,
studio,
Richard. Oh,
Beachfront
Richard.
Media drum. Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
So I
passed
was really good.
away.
I
Yeah,
became really good friends with Richard, or
great
drummer. I used to
guy.
call him
Yeah,
drummer. Yeah, he
I'm
was an
friends with
amazing
his
drummer.
wife, Tonya. Yeah.
Yeah, Tonya. Yeah. So Richard and I talked because he was into music and I was into
Mm.
voiceover and audio
Mm.
production, and we talked a lot about starting a business together. And he was like a music producer and stuff like
Mm.
that. So we didn't like we sort of really didn't land on what it was that we were going to do. But and I kept getting this design stuff, and yeah, I don't know. I guess it just so Moo became a bit of voiceover stuff. We did a lot of different voiceover things like TV ads and radio ads and narration for corporate videos and things like that, and then design. And then yeah, I guess I needed a brand to put it under, so I came up
Mm.
with that. And then yeah, it kind of just went from there. And then we got when I guess when my kids were born, so when my son was born, I had actually gone and worked for another company. I was working full time for another company doing marketing work, because I think all of that media experience and that exposure to that world just and I'm a very practical person, put me in a
Mm.
space where I felt that I could I understood what people wanted, and I
Yeah.
could help them tell their story.
Mm.
So yeah, so I guess I did that. And then when Ashton came along, I just thought I just felt that I needed to spend more time with the kids. So I just
Mm.
chucked everything in and
Mm.
went, full time at Moo, and gave away everything else, and thought I'll just make a living doing this, and I'll be able to spend time with the kids and help
Mm.
bring them up, which was the best thing I ever did. And
Was
then
that
I guess through that, it just grew.
was it a frightening move to go from the security of a job to just trusting that the work would come in?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because I'm really conservative. Like
Mm.
I don't do too many crazy things, and yeah, to chuck the job in but as you've got a 3-month-old at home
Mm.
who I felt that I couldn't settle at night. Like if I would try and give my wife a break and try and settle the baby at 2 o'clock in the morning when he was upset. And I just felt like I didn't have a connection because I was at work all the time. So so that was the reason. And then from then until they both went to school, I only worked 4 days a week, so that I always got to spend one weekday with them as well as the weekends. And that's great. I think it's been the best thing I've ever done. But then as a byproduct of that, this business just was bubbling away, and I was doing all the things that I wanted to do through that as well.
Great. So I'm curious too, how did you come up with Moo Media? Was there any inspiring moment?
No, well, so my wife Shannon was a journalist back in the day, and a long time ago, and yeah, there was a farmer. I think we were both working in Ballarat, and there was a farmer who I think had brought in the Scottish Highland cows, the real hairy cows.
Love them.
Yeah. So there was a farmer up there that I think had brought them into that area of Australia, like up near Ballarat, and was breeding them, and she had to go and do a story for the paper about that. And anyway, she was just obsessed by these cows. She couldn't believe them, and had a photo. The photographer took a photo with her and the cow, and she stuck the photo up on her desk at work. And then it just became one of those things where everyone just kept buying cow stuff, cow coffee mug, or someone would go on a holiday and they'd see something quirky that had a cow on it. So they just kept buying her all this stuff. And anyway, it was just one of those things. It got to a point where, she almost had to tell people to stop doing it because there was just, and the stuff was just stupid. But yeah, one day when we decided to, we needed an ABN to register the business, we needed a name, and never thought of it. And someone who I was working with said, Moo Media, it's obvious, isn't it? It's all about a cow. So that was it. That was what we did. So we went with the cows.
So you and Shannon, so Shannon came into the business as well. At what point?
Yep. So so she was working in PR at the Gordon TAFE. She was doing that for a few years and then had our first child. So she never went back to the Gordon after that. She basically just came back into Moo, because during that period, while she was off on maternity leave, we picked up our first sort of regular contract, which was with back then it was the Geelong Performing Arts Centre. So we picked up a contract with them doing communications, so PR, marketing, graphic design, and all those things. And because of our skill set, we had that ability to be able to offer that. So we did that for 14 years. In the end, we worked on that project with and through a whole lot of different periods of redevelopment and the playhouse redevelopment, all that sort of stuff. So right up till when the funding was announced for the current redevelopment, we were there through all of that. And then their needs obviously changed because of the organisation just became bigger and bigger. So they went from using an external company to doing all their communications in-house. So now I get to work with them with video. So I do a bit of video work with them, and I really enjoy it.
So how did you then transition into video? Because that wasn't initially in the package, was it?
No, it wasn't. I think with the radio, one of the things I used to really, really enjoy with the radio was interviewing people. So in the country, in the radio, working in country radio, you would be just on air, and then and it was so random that someone would walk in. I remember one day someone walked in. I was doing mornings at 3YB, and a guy walked into reception, and he said, "Oh, I'm the drummer from Australian Crawl, the band Australian Crawl, and I've got this new album, and I just thought I'd pop in and see if there was any chance of getting an interview on the radio." So of course, country radio, the receptionist would come down and say, "Oh, the drummer from Australian Crawl's here. He's got a new album out, a solo album with his mates, and can you?" So he'd come in and we'd do an interview, and then it was kind of like that. So
all spontaneous.
I just found that absolutely, yeah. And I just found I really enjoyed talking to people and just I guess finding out about people. Doing what you're doing to me is what I really enjoy.
You probably. When's the last time this happened to you, being interviewed?
This is never.
Really?
I think it's the first time.
Does it make you uncomfortable, or you're okay on the other side?
Very uncomfortable. You should see my legs shaking.
You wait till you hear the questions I've got coming up.
Oh, great. Yeah. No, so I just loved talking to people. So I think I think in the end, that was just the thing for me. I just loved being able to do that. So I loved being able to help, by talking to people, you're helping them tell their story. You're helping tell my story. And so I just found that really, really interesting. And that was just what I wanted to do. So I found that by using, because being a designer, it's a visual experience, and then being in the radio side of things, it's an audio experience. Well, for me, video brought those two elements together, and it just seemed absolutely natural thing to do.
And did you just teach yourself or did you go and study?
Yeah. No, I did. There was you may remember this company. It doesn't exist anymore as far as I'm aware. A company in Geelong called Worldwide Entertainment.
Oh, I thought you were going to say them. Yeah.
Did you?
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
So back in a long time ago, I was doing voiceovers for them. And so for those who didn't know of Worldwide, it was in James Street. And I think there was a claim once that it was like the biggest television production company in Australia outside of the big networks, because they used to produce so much TV for all over the world, but it was all very, very low budget. You know, they were just packaging up footage that they were getting from all over the world, sports, entertainment, you know, showbiz, gossip, music, all that sort of stuff. So I used to go in there and would voice shows for them in an international accent, you know, so that then it could be broadcast in any country in the world, and no one would be able to say that, oh, that's an Aussie guy.
Can you just tell me, like, can you give us an example of an international accent? I've heard people talk about this. So you've kind of got to find the blend between everything, do you?
Geez, I haven't done this for a long time, but you know, you have a springboard line that you get into an accent. I used to always just round my vowels, so I would talk like that and start to talk like a bit like an ESPN sort of style. So it was a little bit English, but it was a little bit not American, not a transatlantic accent, but just sort of something in between. Yeah. I used to think of King Charles, you know, at the start when I used to start it. Yeah, that was my sort of in my mind when I started voicing a show to get me in the zone, and then I'd start doing that, and then I'd have to keep trying to not get too English, you know. But it was kind of cool. And when you do it a lot, like I think at one point I was doing 7 shows a week, 7.5-hour shows a week. Oh my gosh. So so that was kind of.
So then it was hard to go back into your Aussie accent after that.
Into a normal accent, yeah, that's it.
Your Bowen Heads accent.
My Bowen Heads one. That's awesome, mate. But I think I just watched these guys because I was in a booth doing voices, and then there was and it was all cut. So the voices were cut live to the vision. So they would have written and pre-packaged the half-hour episode. So it might have been a show. You know, there was a Hollywood gossip show that I used to host with Amanda Brocklebank. You'd remember Amanda. She used to be on K-Rock, I think, years ago, doing the breakfast show. So I used to co-host stuff with her, and then but by being in this booth and watching these guys cut your live voice, and you'd be off time codes and, you know, watching a TV with what's happening on the vision and and actually hitting the time codes as the voices, as the script told you. And it was all recorded, like not in one take, but it was all done effectively. If you didn't make a mistake, you could get a 30-minute or a 21-minute episode in one take if you could do it. I never did that. But I think just being around that TV and all that stuff just kind of, I don't know, I just started to find that was something that I could see that I could do. And so I ended up I wrote a TV series for them. And then they went broke. So did it get to air?
It didn't get to air?
Yeah, it did. It was called Wacky TV. So it was just a stupid, you know, show where they just pull like crazy little bits of
like funniest home videos.
Almost like that. Yeah. So the shows would appear on pay TV networks or in-flight entertainment. You know, you might get on a international flight, and one of my shows would be on TV or something like that. So it was that's where they were. They were just, it was almost like just content filler for staff, you know, for different TV stations in amongst all the other stuff. But you know, my understanding was they used to produce a lot of it here because back then the dollar was very cheap, and it was much cheaper to produce it in Australia than it was to produce it, say, in America or the UK.
Mm.
Yeah, so that was the thing. And then, and because I'm working, I'm doing my work and graphic design, and I got these amazing clients. And I think it was Alcoa at the time said to me, do you reckon you could come out and film a session where we're putting the staff were doing some tree planting out in, just out on in one of the sort of public areas out on Point Henry. And they said, do you reckon you can come and film it so we can show the head office back in America what we're doing? And I was always interested in, I guess I always had good cameras and stuff like that. So I just did that. And that was kind of how it started, really.
So you just learnt on the fly, really?
Yep, absolutely. Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
Okay.
And had good people around me to do that. So I'd
Pick
bring
their brains.
when a bigger job would come along, I'd say, yep, I can do it. And then I would bring in someone to help me do it. And then while we were doing it, I was obviously learning what they were doing, and just went from there.
And you do all the editing yourself as well?
Yeah. I just find that that's how I can tell the story. I can just if I can understand the story and I can film it and then I can tell it, then it just works well. Yeah.
So where like, have you got big visions? Like, it's been quite a journey. Have you got any visions of something you'd ultimately love to do? Now you've gathered all the different parts together. Is this a project in mind?
Yeah. I think so what most of the work that we do now, and it's primarily become video production mostly, is what we do. And a lot of that's because of COVID. Really, when COVID hit, we just finished with the Art Centre, our contract, which was at one point we had about 5 staff working on that contract with us. So we scaled right back, and then COVID hit, and so we kind of had an opportunity. We were going to reinvigorate the business again outside, like once we sort of had that had finished a contract with the Art Centre. So it was all timing wise, it was all worked out really, really well. But I guess with COVID, it just really the work that came through the most was video production. Everyone wanted video production during COVID. So I found that I was really busy during that period of time. And so all of that work is all commercial work. So it's corporate stuff. But one of the things that I think I would really like to do is I want to do some documentaries and actually try and do something where I can find the story that I want to tell rather than telling someone else's story. And I've got a few ideas of things that I'd like to do. So I'm doing some courses through the Waterfront Film Foundation. I'm actually doing a documentary course with a doco maker there in the next few weeks, and I'll just see what happens. Just try and tap into that space, maybe. Yeah. Now
you've mentioned Geelong Waterfront Film. Can you tell me about your role on the you're on the board, aren't you? And what the vision is?
So the Waterfront Film Foundation, it had been around a little while before I became involved, which I've been involved for a couple of years now. But Belinda Lyle and Patrick Rowan, they were the people sort of behind it, and they, I guess Patrick Rowan was getting requests from people who wanted to invest in the film industry, and Belinda was pretty passionate about it as well. So they kind of formed a group of people together and said, look, we should really try and ramp this up, because people are making films in the region, but there's no sort of one port of call where people can come to if they want to make a film. So there's 2 parts to the foundation. One part is a fundraising component. So there's so people who want to invest in film can donate money through the foundation, and then the foundation will help people with grants and things to produce content that they want to produce. But then the other side of it is really just around being the one-stop shop where a filmmaker can come to Geelong, or an international filmmaker can come to Australia and say, right, this is where I want to film, because Geelong's a great location. It's got a city, it's got beaches, it's got beautiful countryside, there's so many offerings for filmmakers in this space that it's very appealing for people to come and make films here. So we want to try and promote the area, but also make the experience for filmmakers as easy as it can be when they come and shoot here. And we've done that through the foundation, or through Geelong Waterfront Film already. With there was a horror film shot maybe 18 months ago at Avalon Airport on a plane, and so they use they've got the hangar out there. There's like a green screen studio out there,
Right.
and they've got a full 747 which they use as a prop.
Wow.
And you can hire that, and so someone hired it. And I think she was a filmmaker from Melbourne, and she came down and hired that. But then it was really great because when she had a crew there and she started using that facility, she started to realize that she needed catering and she needed an extra audio person and bits and pieces. So she came to the Geelong Waterfront Film and said, can you help me with that? And one of our objectives is building a database of talent, of people who, whether they're cinematographers, whether they're audio people, whether they're carpenters that can work building sets, all that sort of stuff. We're building a network of those people. So as a filmmaker, you can come to the Geelong Waterfront Film and say, this is what I need, and we can connect you with the right people. So so I find it really a really good thing, and ultimately it boosts the film industry in Geelong, which is all good for the economy.
And it connects everyone in together too, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah. So you might get a big job and you know who to call on for extra people. And no, I love it.
Absolutely.
It's incredible.
Yeah. Because as you would know, this industry, everyone pretty much does their own thing, and people work independently, but there's a lot of times where we all need to collaborate and work together, and to be able to connect in with each other. I think it's a really good service that we can offer.
Absolutely. I was going to ask you seem like a very relaxed, no stress kind of guy. What would you say along the way with your business journey has been the most challenging? Has anything really rattled you that you've learnt from and grown through?
I think the hardest thing for me has always been work-life balance. When you're starting out, working really long hours, and as I said before, it was about the kids and about being able to help be there for them and be around and be. I didn't want to be the parent that got home at 8 o'clock every night as the kids went to bed and then was gone the next morning before they got up. So to be able to do that and start a business and build a business was really hard because of the hours that I guess I had to put in to be able to do that. So I always found that was a challenge, or looking at the weekend going, I'm going to have to work this weekend because there's so much to do. And if I don't do it, I'm going to get in trouble. So that was always a hard thing. And the other hard thing that I've always found is around staffing and around when to hire staff and when you need staff. Because we've had, like I said before, we've had staff at different times. But sometimes I found that if we had staff maybe we were overstaffed for a bit. I found that all I was doing was trying to find work to keep people employed and not doing what I was really passionate about. So I don't know. So I think that, and I don't know the answer to that. I don't know if someone does know the answer. I'm keen to hear from you if you do. But I think they've been the hardest things, to be honest. But
whether to take it to the next level or to keep it between. So it's mainly you and Shannon now, is it?
It is now, yeah. So in our industry, with the filmmaking industry, there's a lot of freelancers. So if I need support, I can call in freelancers because a lot of us all work like that. But we've just bought we rented a space in Geelong for 15 years in the city, and we've just, through COVID, I said I don't do irrational things very often, but I did buy a building at the start of COVID, just as the world's shutting down. I thought, why wouldn't you buy this building? So I was convinced by a few people here in Geelong to invest in Geelong. So we did. So we bought a building. It's in Breakwater. So it's a warehouse in Breakwater, and it's being decked out at the moment. The builders have actually just finished last week doing all the structural stuff so we can set up studio space. So we've got a green screen studio space and a podcast studio, all that sort of stuff. So it'll be something that I'll be able to use for my work, but also others will be able to
rent it out as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Amazing. Yeah. I want a space that people can just walk in and sit down and do an interview, a podcast interview, not unlike what we're doing in person, and then end up walk out of the studio with a video and an audio recording of the podcast. Yeah.
That's exciting. That's a whole new zone that you're entering. So
Yeah,
that,
it is. Yeah, yeah.
yes, love it. And so what about working with your wife? Is that an easy process? Do you have like anything you can share with people that might be doing the same thing?
Yeah, yeah. I never really thought much about it, to be honest, because we met at a newspaper. She was a journalist, I was a compositor, and we met at the newspaper, and then yeah, I guess we got together. And there were a few people at the time said, "Oh, you shouldn't be, dating someone at work or whatever." But I don't know. I just thought, I can't see why there's a problem in
Yeah.
this, and that's been the case. We moved to Geelong, and she went and worked at the Geelong Addy for a while, and then went to the Indies. So she was doing journalism, and I was doing graphic design, and so we kind of would work away in our own jobs, and then we came back together and worked together at Moo Media, and but we just work really well together. We just don't find. Yeah, we probably talk too much about work sometimes at home.
Yeah.
That's probably the problem, because often when you're raising a family, that you got to talk about things when you get that opportunity, because life can get so busy. But no, I've never found a problem with it. And sometimes I hear things about office romances and stuff like that. And yeah, my daughter said the other day, she said something that we used to love the show The Office, and she said the other day, she said, "You two were just like Pam and Jim," because she was looking back through some old photos, and I was like, yeah, well, see, office romances can work out.
Yeah. So obviously you do seem like a very relaxed character, but how do you deal with stress, and how do you look after yourself when things do get pretty intense?
I think I keep myself busy with so many things. I think I'm just, I don't know, I think I'm just generally a busy person. So I find, so I live on a few acres, and so when you live on a little farm, you've got lots of things to do. And we've got dairy goats, so we breed dairy goats, and we just find I just find there's lots of things to do. So what I love doing is and not, it's been hard lately with the weather. It's just been so wet this winter. But I just love, when I'm not in front of the computer or behind a camera, I'm just out doing stuff, whether I'm out in the paddocks, just walking around the paddocks, fixing a fence or doing stuff like that. So I find that is a real mental therapy, because it gets me away from thinking about the stuff that I have to do, with work. And I'll take the the phone down and plug it into the speaker and just crank the music up while I'm down in the paddock, just working away. And I don't know, I just find that sort of stuff's really good. I need to exercise more. I know that. And I think that's probably a really good thing to do. And I need to do more of that. But I think being able to break away from work is really, really important.
Get that nature fix. Tell me you've got a
Yeah, I think
cow.
so.
You have to have a cow, right?
No.
What?
It's. I know it's crazy, isn't it? We would have if we just haven't got enough land for cows.
Just
But
one
but
cow for Shannon for
no,
Christmas?
not even one. No. Dairy goats. So that's as close
Dairy
as we can get.
goats. And so how many dairy goats do you have?
We've only got 7 at the moment. So
So do you have to get out and do the milking and everything?
yeah, when they're milking, we do
Yeah.
that. We haven't done it for a couple of years. They're more pets at the moment, but we have had times where we milk them, and yeah, and I've made goat's cheese. I really love making goat's cheese. That was something. There's another
That's an
little
extra skill.
mental therapy thing that you sort of go, well, yeah, I went to learn how to make goat's cheese a few years ago over at Drysdale off Corrin from Drysdale Cheeses, and so that was a bit of fun doing that. And then Shannon's made goat soap a few years ago. She started making goat soap, so you can actually buy it. She sells it to a few shops.
Wow, little side hustle going on with your goats.
A little side hustle, yeah. But I think now COVID's behind us. Everything, it's going to be a balancing act to just find out what we can keep doing, because we're just, it's just crazy busy at the moment.
Where do you see the industry that you're in going, and do you just think it's going to explode still with what you're doing?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I think it's just going to get stronger and stronger. I mean, I started in newspaper, and actually I had a meeting the other day with a former newspaper editor, and And he said to me, he said, you saw the writing on the wall to get out of that when I did. But for me, it wasn't about getting out of an industry because I didn't see a future in it. It was about, for me, it was about evolving and just finding the next thing that I wanted to do as a person. But I guess as I've done that with the business, we have been able to adapt and be really agile and evolve with where the work is. And I guess, as you know, we've always been held back by technology, you know, like if I could have made videos 30 years ago or 25 years ago and be doing video production for a living, I would have been doing that, I'm sure. But I think the technology just took a while to get to that point now where we can do what we want to do. So I think being able to evolve and be really agile is really important, and that's what we've been able to do.
What would you say to someone starting out potentially in your field, or just starting out in business? Anything you've learnt along the way that you wish you'd known when you were starting?
The thing we often get we haven't had it for a while because we haven't had space, but once my new studio's open, which is in the, you know, hopefully in the next few weeks, we'll be able to start having work experience kids and interns come back in, and I'm really passionate about that because I was really supported when I was a kid in work experience, and it really helped me choose what I wanted to do. So I'm really keen for that to help young people, help them find what they want to do. But the thing for me, and the best advice I reckon I would give anyone, is to just really follow your dream, because I see a lot of people who have a dream to do something, whether it's be a filmmaker or be a graphic designer or whatever it is, and they might do it for a while. And a lot of jobs in the arts industries don't pay very well when you start out. So I think that's a bit of a problem for some people, and they see other people doing admin jobs and potentially earning more money. So they might be doing what they love for a while, and then they go, you know what, I'm going to chuck it in and I'm going to go and take that other role because I can earn more money. You know, I might earn an extra 10 grand a year or whatever it is. But I feel that if you stick to what you want to do and you're passionate about it, you'll find a career in it, and the money will come. If you get, you know, if you're passionate about something, you'll get really good at it. You're obviously, you know, if it's something you love, and then you'll be sought after to do what you do.
That is great advice. And are your children following in your footsteps? Are they interested in what you're doing?
I don't know. I honestly don't know what they're going to do. No, I have no idea. So it's they're both very arty. There's no doubt about that. They're both very arty. Ashton, I don't know. Going into year 12, he's doing year 12 next year. But outside of that, I think he's talking about taking a year off and traveling and doing all of that stuff, which is great. When he comes back from that, I don't know. He's into music. He plays guitar, and he's, you know, dabbles with a few different bandmates, and, you know, so I think music's something he's really interested in. But he's also kind of realistic that he says, well, I'll probably need a job and play music as well, sort of do it together. So I don't know. I think they'll both do something in that creative space. Holly's a brilliant, you know, creative drawer, and she's a really great artist, but she really loves psychology. So I don't know what she'll do. Something it'll be interesting to see. Can't wait.
Well, as long as they're happy and healthy, that's the main game, isn't it? At the end of the day.
Absolutely right.
What have you loved about being a member of the chamber? What have the benefits been to you?
Oh, look, my chamber story, because I've been around a long time. So the thing for me with the chamber, I was a member of the chamber when I first registered the business, 1998, because, like I said earlier, I was doing the voiceover stuff, and I signed up. I became a chamber member, and I used to go to the chamber dues, and I was a lot younger back then. And as for those that are in the chamber now that maybe weren't back then, it was a really different organisation. It was lots of men in suits, and I was not in a suit. You know, I'd wear jeans and a shirt, and I don't know, I just felt that I wasn't sure this was the right place for me to be. And so I dipped out and went and did other things and stuff like that. And then I came back to the chamber. I don't even know how many years ago it was. Must be 15 years ago or whatever. And it's different. It's different. There is so many young people involved. There's so many, like the balance between, you know, back then it was 99% men. There might be 2 or 3 women at a chamber function. Now it's it's just this real good mix. So I think to be part of that organization, it's like a real snapshot of the business community now, which is really exciting. So I think that's where I find it really interesting. I just don't get it to enough of the after fives, unfortunately, but they're
Too
always
busy.
good fun.
We'll have to drag you out to the
It's just one
next
of those
one, though.
things. Yeah, I must get there. Yeah, I
Yeah.
must.
Fantastic. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time. And we can't wait to see your documentary. How many years are we looking at before that comes out?
I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. Put 5 years on it.
All
And there'll
right.
be something
We'll
out
give you a
there.
time
Yeah.
limit and we'll check back in.
All right. All right. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Chris, and good luck.
Thanks, Angie.
See ya.
Good to talk to you.
I'm Angie Hilton, and thanks for listening to Unbreakable Entrepreneurs Podcast. If you've enjoyed this, don't forget to subscribe and head to geelongchamber.com.au for more wellbeing tips. This has been brought to you by the Geelong Chamber of Commerce and the Partners in Wellbeing program.